All right, I want to show you a quick and easy way to take and cut out someone with hair and put it on a different background or a color or something like that. This technique will work with a fair amount of images. It won't work with all images, obviously, but let's get started. So you can see right here, I've got an image with a mask on it, and you can see the mask right there. And we're going to create that mask so that we can go in and cut her out. Now you can see that the original looks like this. So this is kind of an easier image, I admit. It's not on some crazy background, 50 people behind her. That's definitely difficult, but you can see there's a little bit of a challenge. We've got some things going on down here, but anyway, let's attack this. So one of my first steps is I could go in and try and make a selection. That's our ultimate goal. But I'm going to use what's called a channel to do that. So I'm going to go over to my channels panel. And if you've used channels before, you're familiar with them. And channels basically allow us to do some different things. Now, channels by default show you the different colors within an image. So if you click on red, green, and blue, you'll sort of see like, well, it depends on what color space or color mode you're using, but it's almost like a color negative. This is how Photoshop sees color, where how much red, green, blue should be. Now, if you click on the composite channel, it's called, you can see all of them kind of mixed together for us humans to be able to see the color. We can also use channels to save selections, and usually it's white is selected, black is not, or to create spot colors, spot channels, things like that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take one of these channels, and if we click on red, green, and blue, we're looking for this. We're looking for a channel to help us. We're going to use a channel to make a selection. You can literally click on each one of these, and if you find a channel that looks like the hair is more separate from the background, there's a bigger disparity in the black and white, let's say, you can use that one. Okay, so I think green looks okay. Blue's probably fine too, but here's what we'll do. Take one you think where there's a big difference between the hair and the background. And this is where I said this is not going to work in every image. So if I take that channel and drag it to the new channel icon down here, it's going to make a copy of it. Now we want to do that because you don't want to mess with your original color channels. That's bad. You're going to screw with the color in your image. So if I double click on the channel, I'll call it something like hair. Now we're going to tease, no pun intended, tease out the selection here by doing anything we want to this channel. We can do anything. We can go in and do brightness, contrast, curves, levels, whatever. I'm going to do a levels adjustment here. So if you press Control L or Command L, what we can do is we can open up levels. And all I'm going to do is work on the composite channel here and just kind of pull in. And what we're trying to get here is we're trying to get basically black and white, or as close as we can. Now don't worry about the inside here. We'll fix that. We're going to paint that. But if you look at the information here, you'll see that I've got a lot of light gray over here in the image, tonal range. I'm going to pull this in. Now we need to be careful. You are going to lose some of these little wispies here. All right, and usually that's going to happen. So we're going to try and be careful here and crank it back and forth. Be careful you don't make it too hard-edged. You're going to see right here, we need some see-through. So if I crank this too far out, you'll see it almost fills it in with black. Black means it's basically not going to be selected. So I'm going to do something like that. Maybe pull this over a bit. I'm trying to be very careful of the wispies. Trying to make sure I don't lose those. And don't go too far in either direction here. That's the problem. All right, that looks okay. Now I'm looking down here. That looks okay. I'll click OK. Now we've got an issue over here, and I've got some issues up here as well. So here's what we can do. You can select parts of this channel now and just do things like adjustments. So I'm going to select with my lasso here. I'm going to select just the top. And I'll just kind of grab this stuff. Hit Control or Command L, and we'll just do a nice little levels adjustment there and see what we can get. So we can kind of tease a little bit more out of there. Like I said, be careful. Watch the dark. Try and make a little bit more dark. You gotta watch that edge, everybody. You do not want something like this where it's a hard edge. So I'm gonna have a little bit of blur on the edge there. I can pull in the white here just a bit. We're losing some of the wispy again. You gotta try and account for that. Once again, I'm getting a little too hard edge there, but okay, we'll see. I'll click OK and I'll deselect, and not too bad. Now the other thing we can do is we can go out, and you can see I kind of screwed up a little bit here, but you can always undo and try different methods here. Now let me select down here and do the same thing. I'll try that. So Control L or Command L. We can also try different methods. Like I said, we can try using brightness contrast. You can try curves adjustment if you're good with curves. Let me pull this in a bit. Try and adjust that a bit. All right, that doesn't look too bad. Okay, now I'll deselect that. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill in the center here. So what we need to do is we're just going to paint with black and white, basically. So if I go to my brush tool, go to your brush, you can see it right over here. I'm going to use my way to kind of make this a little bit faster, make it bigger or softer or darker or harder. Hold down Control Option on Mac, drag left, drag right. It's basically it's Control right click on Mac, or sorry, Control right click on Windows, drag right or left, drag up or down to make it harder or softer. I want to make a little bit harder brush here and go a little decent size. There we go. Let go of my mouse, let go of the keys, and just go in here. We're going to make sure we paint with white and black. If you start painting and you're painting with the wrong thing, here's what you can do. If you come down to the colors down here, you can hit D to go to default colors and hit the letter X to switch back and forth. Make sure black is up front. And we're just going to go in and quickly just kind of paint. There's 50 ways you can do this. You could use a marquee, you can fill it, you can do whatever you want. But be very careful. Don't get too crazy. And you can see I kind of screwed up right there. Okay. We can always go in and try and fix things a little bit. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to try and paint some of this away out here. So I'm going to switch. So if I go to white, hitting X, and just trying to paint some of this out of here. You got to be very careful of the hair, the wispies there. Going in, just kind of painting some of this away. There we go. I got some over here. Just making sure we get what we need. Now you're going to find, like I said, we have a problem here. Okay. I've got, and don't worry about this little guy right here. But you're going to see I got a problem. I'm going to get to the wispies. So there's a couple things we can do here. Let me pull this out of the way. We can actually paint right over the top of them, but the problem is we're going to get rid of them. So let me undo that. So what we can do is we can actually paint with what's called soft light or a blending mode to try and do this. And if I crank back the opacity, you're going to see right up here, I can take the opacity and pull it back a bit. And if I start painting, you're not going to get rid of the wispies. You're just going to kind of tone them down a little bit. So I can kind of hit the edges here and try and get rid of some of that. I'm going click, 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 try and get rid of some of it. It's not too bad. Click, 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 try and get rid of some of that. That's almost hopeless right there. I'll show you a different way to attack that, but let me undo that. Come down here. Let me zoom in so you can see this. Got to be careful with this kind of stuff because you don't want to get too crazy. I'm going to change my brush size. You can also use the bracket keys if you want to adjust your brush size. I'm just going to kind of paint in here. I'm using the soft light. Now you can also, if you want to, you can also go in and you can paint, or rather not paint, but you can work with the different tools over here. Let me show you a couple else we can work with. It's not looking too bad. I might spend a little more time on this, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to try and take it easy here. You can also go over and use your dodge and burn tools if you want. So if you want to, we can kind of burn this a little bit if it gets too light. We can also dodge it, which is making it a little bit lighter, so you can kind of pull it back a little bit. That's kind of nice. You can also adjust the exposure up here as well. So hopefully you're getting the idea here. We're trying to make a selection. Now if you screw up like you see right here, there's a couple things we can do. We can also just kind of select and redo. So for instance, I can do something like this. I can go to the green channel, make another copy by dragging down. I can make another levels adjustment here and just focus on this area right here. Okay, so let me make another levels adjustment here and say, that looks not too bad. Let me pull this out, pull this in. Be careful of how much I go in. That's probably too much, to be honest. Let me pull that back a bit. All right, there we go. And then what you can do is you can basically just lasso or select an area, copy it, go back to your hair channel, and just paste in the good. So that's kind of cool. Now you got to be careful. We got a little bit left over here, so I need to go in and kind of work on that a bit. So once again, I'm going to switch to my brush tool. I might want to go with the softer brush and just kind of attack some of the wispies up here, get rid of some of this stuff right here. There we go. Not too bad. Maybe even go in and do a little bit with my my dodge and burn tools to attack that, but I think it looks pretty good. Now I might just kind of go in here just a little bit to kind of attack some of this, pull it back a little bit. All right, not too bad. Now we made a selection here, we made a channel. What we need to do is we need to make a selection out of it now. So if I click on the channel here, make sure it's selected, what we can do is we can inverse it. If you hit Control-I or Command-I, you can inverse this thing. This actually leads you down a path that's going to help, because if you look here, you're going to see, I got a little problem out here. So I might need to attack that with my brush just a little bit more. Now I need to switch colors if I'm going to work here. So I'm going to just kind of pull in a little bit, make sure I'm attacking this a little bit, using my soft light, different brush techniques here. We can kind of pull in. There we go, not too bad. And you just got to kind of work it a little bit. You're going to find, once again, that you're going to lose a little bit of wispy stuff. Sometimes we go back in and we paint some of that back in. So don't worry too much about it. Okay, that's not looking too bad. Like I said, I could spend a little more time on this and kind of attack it and make it look better. But anyway, I could attack down here too. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to make our selection now. So I come over to my channels over here. I'm going to Command on Mac or Control click on it. got our selection. This will stay here. Don't worry about that. Go out to our level or layers out here, excuse me, and we're going to make a mask. So I'll just click on the mask icon, and there we go. Not too bad. Now, you're going to see we've got a problem on the edges, things like that. What we can do is we can kind of work the mask a little bit, and you can see her shoulder is actually gone. We need to paint that back in with the mask. So if I have the mask selected, what you can do is you can shift click on the mask and see what it looked like before, and you can see, oops, there's her shoulder right there. So what I can do then is basically shift click on the mask again, come out here, and if I'm painting with the right color and painting with the regular normal blending mode, excuse me, and the opacity all the way up, I'll go out and kind of paint her shoulder back in. And I always do that. I always screw up the color. There we go. Back in. I'll spend more time on that. But here's one last little thing we can do. Okay. If you want, you can have the mask selected. We can use a new feature in CS5 and CS5.5 called Refine Mask Edge. If I come to the Masks panel and click on Mask Edge, you come in here, what you can do is you can say Decontaminate Colors. I'll click on that, crank it up a bit. Now you got to be careful how much you do it. It's going to look weird. It's going to make a new layer with the layer mask, which is what we want. I'll click OK. Not too bad. It's starting to help. You can see what it's doing to the edges there. Not too bad. Now the last step I can take here is if I go out and zoom in, we have a mask, so we can work with it a little bit. So what we can wind up doing is if I have my brush tool or my dodge and burn tools, I can go in and start to kind of play with this a little bit. You can see that I've got a little bit too much out here, so what I can do is start to kind of work on that. I'll make a soft brush, really soft brush, maybe a little bit bigger, and just kind of go along the edge here and start to work on this. Now you got to be very careful. You're going to see that you're probably going to want to use like dodge and burn to kind of affect that. You can see it doesn't look too bad. But as we go through, we can dodge and burn, we can affect the mask itself, kind of work on it. You can see I messed up a little bit there. Dodge and burn, if I go to burn, be very careful with this because it's going to try and affect things. Now you need to have the layer itself selected, not the mask. And I can go in and try and burn some of the edge here, just kind of bring it in line a little bit and work on the mask itself as well. So a couple different techniques here for trying to get hair cut out, but that doesn't look too bad, to be honest. Okay, it's maybe not professional right now, but I could spend a fair amount of time getting this done and making it look pretty good. So if you use channels, you can always try and tease out a selection. Try and use what you know. Use levels, use curves, use brightness, contrast, however you can get it. Affect parts of it. Now you can also blur a mask. So if you think the edges are too hard, we could go in and use things like the smudge, or sharpen, or blur tool to do that on the edge of the mask itself. You can also select the mask. You can go up to filter and apply something like a Gaussian blur or something like that. That'll allow you, in some cases, it's going to just destroy this image, but it'll allow you to go out and blur the edge of the mask. You can see right there to give it maybe a little feather. Also going into the masks panel and applying a feather or do different things to the mask edge. So there's a lot of ways we can work with this. Hopefully this kind of leads you down a path. I know I went a little bit faster here, but I don't think that looks too bad. I mean, I've got a little bit of work to do around the edges, but it doesn't look too bad. Now in a later video, what I'm going to do is show you how to actually make a channel selection using similar to what we did, but make it so that you have the edges blend into the background. But for right now, good start. Working with channels to make a selection to kind of cut out hair and make it look pretty decent. So not too bad. Like I said, a little bit of work. You can make it look pretty good. It took me about 10 more minutes to get it to look something like that. So there you go.